I've been working on this restoration project for a couple of months. It has been an undertaking, but I'm very happy with the results. I've completely taken apart, cleaned, and reassembled this drum machine, and the best part is, it works. I got this MPC 60 as is from Japan. I didn't want to risk it, so I did a full disassembly and cleaning before trying to power it up for the first time. The AKAI MPC machines are legendary for their use in pop music and hip-hop in particular. You may not have seen one of these before, but you've definitely heard them. The early MPCs are loved for their feel and groove, and known for their gritty 12-bit sound, especially when used for drum samples. When I first got this machine, it was clear I had my work cut out for me. The top LCD screen had obvious damage or mold, the plastic buttons had yellowed, and the whole thing smelled somewhere between a stale towel and a musty old basement. Also, the floppy drive had a disk in it, and it was rather terrifying. I opened up the machine to take a look. The inside circuit boards were absolutely filthy. But I found that isopropyl alcohol worked wonders for cleaning up what I suspect is old flux, that soldering flux residue. So if you're the kind of person that enjoys oddly satisfying cleaning videos, well, boy howdy, do I ever have some content for you. I went to town cleaning these PCBs, and it was so nice to see these things restored and shiny, kind of like they probably were out of the factory. Each board that I cleaned, I also tested the capacitors on. Capacitors are known for causing trouble when they dry out. The next thing I took a look at was the LCD screen. Now, this was absolutely a horror show. It was filthy, it had rusted, it had moisture damage, and it smelled super bad. I also, in the process of getting that thing out of the machine, took the two worst screws I've ever seen in my life out of this machine. They were also the most difficult to remove because they were so badly rusted. I mean, it was something else. The next thing I did was test the backlight on the LCD. Long story short, LCDs need a light behind them so you can see the characters better. I was able to find a brand new unused replacement LCD module on eBay. Couldn't believe it. So I soldered some pins on there, was able to transfer the cables, pull the old backlight out of the old LCD, and then start the process of reassembling the cleaned machine. And then I tried testing it. I tried powering it up for the first time to see what would happen. At first, I wasn't sure what to expect. I got an infrared thermal imaging camera, and I could see that the power supply was warming up, the transformer was warming up, so there was electricity going through the system. But the LCD was showing this strange pattern. Something wasn't quite right. And then I let it sit for a couple hours. And then, watch this. Yes, it works. I cannot tell you how happy I was to see that screen light up. And hear that floppy drive start? Oh, that was amazing. I was able to get a replacement backlight for the replacement LCD, and together they looked really good. It made my work and effort feel all the worthwhile. Oh boy, the next big thing I wanted to take on were the buttons. Now, these things were absolutely filthy. They were originally white, but they yellowed with age. And so I took all the buttons off, cleaned that button PCB, and then again, I went to town cleaning these things up. So my rough plan was to take the buttons, give them a good hot soapy water rinse, and then do the process of retrobrighting, which is basically applying hydrogen peroxide, heat, and light over time to help reverse the yellowing process. Now, opinions vary and differ on the actual chemical stuff and where the yellow comes from, how to reverse it, and it's not necessarily permanent. And I will detail this more, but basically I used a combination of in solution and vapor brighting. And this took a handful of days, but boy, was it ever worth it. I mean, just look at these results. It's somebody better call Al Be Sure, because this difference is night and day. After retrobrighting, I put the buttons back on the board and then went about testing the tactile switches to make sure that they were working. This thing is nearly 40 years old, and so some of these switches needed electrical contact cleaner. This wasn't too hard to do, it was just a bit of a manual effort. Clearly worth doing. While rebuilding the machine, I ran into a system error. This is kind of what I'm calling the green screen of death. I tilted the machine when I lifted and moved it, and then it refused to start. I think I found the fix, and I'm going to follow up on that later. Another thing I did was I found some crackle on the gain switch for the line in. And again, contact cleaner cleaned those out nicely. Cleaned right up. Look at that. I have a few thoughts on how to take on a project like this. If you are looking at this video thinking, there's no way I could do this, trust me, I've been there. I have some thoughts for you. The key thing is one thing a day, one step at a time, one thing at a time, one day at a time. I am very happy to say I've got this machine working. It's been, I don't want to say a slog, but it's taken some time. Take a big project and split it up into small tasks. So how do you climb a mountain? One step at a time. How do you build a house? One brick at a time. Every day you get that little bit of success, that reward. It's all psychology. Every day I get to check off the list. Okay, I completed a task today. Today was basically reassemble the machine. Just connect the cables and then put the buttons back into place, the boards with the buttons on the top face, put the top face back on the machine. Actually, I did a lot today. Other days it would be like, okay, I'm going to clean one of the circuit boards. I'm going to do the bottom side, get all the gunk off the bottom, and then maybe I would check the top side, do the cleaning, and check the capacitors. So yeah, every day there was one little task. And some days I'd take off. Some days I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'm not working on this today. I'm taking the day off. The retrobrighting also took a handful of days, but again, that was worthwhile. Let's see if we can get this to crash. Watch this. All right, now let's get that crash going. Yeah, there it goes. You see that? Okay. So I was able to get this machine to crash if I lift and tilt it from one side. And I'll detail this in a future video, but basically there's a loose connection, a ground, a joint, a cold solder joint somewhere that isn't quite right. And this was quite a funny thing. It was a little scary the first time it happened, but then it became funny once I realized that I knew how to trigger it, and I think I knew the root cause and also how to fix it. Yeah, in the meantime, just need to be careful. Let's try that again. Yeah, we're all good again. So it's temperamental, but I decided to look for cold solder joints just to be safe, and I am not an expert, but the mobile phones these days are able to get pretty good magnification. I definitely found a few contact points on some PCBs that seemed a little sus. Now that said, I didn't actually resolder anything, but it's good to note that a few of these looked a little crusty. Out of curiosity, I did test all the pins on the EEPROMs, that is the firmware, the system ROM, and the connection seemed to be good, but I thought, well, I'd better be safe. Let me pull the EEPROMs and reseat them, just in case that's the root cause of some of these crashes. One of the last things I did was look at the floppy drive. I've covered this in a separate mini-series of videos, but effectively the original floppy drive died. It failed. It never worked, and it seemed to have trouble loading. And so I spent many hours troubleshooting it, and ultimately it mechanically failed. I then found a $14 drive on Amazon, if you can believe it, and converted it to work with the MPC. The long-term goal was to install a modern solid-state GoTech floppy drive. That is a drive emulator that has no moving parts and stores floppies on USB, and also has a built-in PC speaker that makes the floppy drive sounds. This is the kind of video that I was hoping to find myself when researching how to restore an MPC. I hope this helps you in your restoration project. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much.